Colleen join us, or just you and me?
No, she is silently out there in the world.
Okay.
So you'll hear actually people are hearing right now. People will hear as to where Colleen might be.
All right.
Let's see. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tuesday's edition of Coffee with Cramer and Colleen. I'm Don Cramer with the Cramer Group at Urban Nest Realty. And Colleen sends her best. She actually has a closing with a client this morning. So, again, we are excited to get our buyers into their dream home. It's a very interesting time during COVID-19. However, our buyers, we had a great pair that were qualified, and this is a home that is nearby where they grew up, so they're really excited, and Colleen is just there every step of the way till the end when they get the keys, so it's exciting time. I'm going to catch up with them a little later just to stop by and say hi, so she told me to kind of fly solo today. She's, I guess, entrusting me with this every now and again, but Colleen will be back soon, and she is sending her best today because we have a great special guest on today. We have a good friend and colleague, David Dendy, on today's episode. And long and short of it, David is a very interesting character, to say the least. And I'm kind of trying to get, let's see, we got David, we got Don, and we're going to add both of us. There we go. Don's still kind of working on how to get the screens to show up right. David, welcome to the Tuesday edition of Coffee with Cramer and Colleen. Cheers.
There we go.
Well, what kind of beverage do you have this morning? What's your beverage of choice this morning, David?
Beverage of choice is H2O.
Okay, in a nice little mug, and it says "Best Husband Ever." Outstanding.
There we go. At
Outstanding.
least one person thinks that. So.
Exactly. Well, you got to start with one, right? You get from one, you get to two. So, well, David, thanks for coming on board. And here's the 411 on Mr. Dendy. Mr. Dendy is pastor at Mountain View Presbyterian Church here in Las Vegas for 5 years. He's been an ordained pastor for over 30. Author of 14 books, which are available for purchase online. And a lot of those books are about faith and in the Lord. And also, he's been a speaker at many groups and events. And two little known facts. So David and I were kind of like casual. It's our casual Tuesday because David comes from a tennis background. I come from a golf background. So we love to wear our polos now and again. And I want to dive a little bit into that. But the most interesting is he had the opportunity before COVID-19 to show his comedy chops at one of the best comedy clubs in the nation, Caroline's, which is historic in New York City. And that all happened not too long ago. However, David, I want to kind of talk about that as well. And he's got an interesting mantra here: laugh often and fear not. David, thanks for being a part of today's show.
Don, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here and nice to show off the polos, although a little chilly here in Las Vegas today.
It's a little
cool.
Only
supposed to get up to 75.
We may have to break out the sweater vest as well because there's nothing better than a sweater vest over a polo.
Exactly. That's such a fine, good country club look.
Exactly. Because, we want that sort of casual country club look in Vegas. Well, David, it's an interesting journey. I kind of consider you a little bit of a renaissance man because when I kind of look at the various things you've done, it's got a lot of width to life and it's got a lot of depth to it.
Yeah.
So explain to me your kind of okay. Early age, it was tennis. It sounds like.
Well, this width and this depth might be due to the fact that it's been hard to keep a job, all these years.
I understand that. I follow you there. It's an interesting generation we live in.
Well, I grew up in Southern California, down Orange County. I grew up 4 miles from Disneyland, the happiest place on earth, and 17 miles from the coast and from the beach. And we always thought the beach was so far away, but God, it was just 30 minutes away. And why we didn't go more often, I don't know. But anyway, then went off to college in North Carolina, Davidson College, great school down there, where Steph Curry played basketball and came from. So big Golden State Warriors fan, obviously. But a bit of travels. My life's taken me all over the country, and have enjoyed a variety of jobs throughout. Obviously been an ordained pastor for 31 and a half years. And during that time have taken a little break to do some fundraising, help churches with capital stewardship campaigns, and I've helped over 100 churches raise $200 million, something like that. And so if your church out there needs to raise some money, look no further.
Look no further. Okay. Terrific. So Southern Cal, East, so kind of West Coast to East Coast, it's, one end to the other. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily tennis to pastors one end to the other, but it's a journey along the way. And explain a little bit of how that kind of led you down that path.
Well, grew up playing tennis, loved tennis all my life. And then not too long ago, found myself in a time of transition between jobs. And a good friend of mine from Houston, is a tennis director down there at Country Club, Carlton Woods Country Club, and invited me to be a tennis pro, his assistant pro.
Yep.
And so did that for a while, had a great time, but ultimately gave way to giving me an opportunity to write a book, seeing God at work every day, the 40-day challenge, and then also to get back into ministry, which led me right here to Las Vegas, Nevada, Sin City.
Gotcha.
Which everyone wants to know, how can you be a pastor in Sin City? And my answer is always the same. It's job security. This is the best place to be a pastor. I mean,
right.
Come on.
Who needs help? Are the sinners, right?
Exactly. This is where it's happened.
So you wrote a book and then made the move out. Tell me about what inspired the book.
Well, that's a great question. So most of my life, or at least since the year 2000 or so, have always tried to do something new with the new year. It's a new year, let's do something new, try something different. So one year it was learn to play the piano, and then I had to play in front of the whole congregation, and that was nerve-wracking. One year it was run a marathon, which I did in 2011, ran the Napa Valley Marathon, 26.2 miles. And then in around Christmas time in 2012, it was Christmas Eve, and I heard God say to me, hey, in 2013, for the new year 2013, I want you to write a blog every day of where you see me, where you see God at work in the world. And this was December 24th, and I thought, I've never written up, I don't even know what a blog is. I don't even know how to write a blog or how to put a site together or anything. So sure enough, started on January the 1st, and every day for a full year did that. And then somewhere along the way, 4 or 5 people on the same day said, hey, you ought to turn this into a book. And I thought, well, I've always wanted to be an author, but what do I have to write about? And so at the end of the year, it took a full year to kind of put it all together, but put a book together, got it published by Westbow Press, and here we go. And so it wasn't all 365, it was just 40.
Right.
And then the next year or 2 years later, I took all the devotions, just made them each 1 month individual.
Low increments.
Individual months, yeah. So it's called the Eyewitness series. So Eyewitness January, Eyewitness May, those kind of things. And they're available on Amazon.com.
Perfect.
There you go.
So
it was a lot of fun. I've, like I said, never written a book before. It was quite challenging and very rewarding. And it's just a great way to just get your thoughts down and have a nice record of it.
Right. No, absolutely. No question. I mean, embarking on writing and explaining your thoughts, and especially, with your faith and such. I mean, it's definitely, great that you could, it shows your devotion. And I think that's important. And it's depending on your devotion towards your profession and your craft. And so, David, with that in mind, let's, it's we're certainly, we always say it's interesting, we live in Sin City, which is an interesting city day in and day out, but we're also coupling it with probably some of the most interesting times, even though probably the last 30 years, I'd say there's got to be 4 or 5 events that say, okay, these are the most unusual times we've ever been in, but yet this seems to be the most unusual. How
I would say so. Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree wholeheartedly.
How are you with your congregation? How are you interacting right now? I mean, obviously, it's a lot over, digitally over tools like Zoom and such.
Right.
But how are you and your congregation getting along right now?
Well, we're in the same boat as everybody else.
Okay.
I mean, it's well, let me say this: we're in the same storm. Each of us have different boats that we're in, but we're all in the same storm.
Right.
And we provide online services. Every Sunday morning, I'm up front. I'm live, and we're live streaming a worship service. I preach. We offer some music, prayers, this and that. And people can tune in on Facebook or YouTube and turn into the website. So that's been going very well. But I think people are really missing on the the physical eye to eye. And I mean, we're touchy people. I mean, that's why God gave us a sense of touch. We need to touch. We're tactile. We need to hug, handshake. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. I mean, I think people are really missing out on that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we come out of this. How will we respond? How will we greet one another? If you're not going to handshake or elbow taps become the thing that we need to do. But I'm doing a community prayer group twice a day, 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. Pacific time. And we get, 40 to 60 people on that every day, twice a day. So that's been fabulous. And take prayer requests, praying for our country, our world. People have been sick, people who have recovered, all those things. And then making phone calls and checking in on people, see how they're doing. And so we're staying together even though we are apart.
So, David, and a lot of times we speak to clients, we've had people on, we've talked a lot about setting up our home from a work environment, office environment, the discussion of, okay, well, gyms are closed. How do we stay fit? Has there been any discussion? Because, when I step into a house of worship, there's a beauty, there's a reverence, there's a perceived energy, whether it's here or we're traveling abroad, that you're in the house of the God or the faith. And how have there been discussions as to how people can sort of set that up at home?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I feel a little remiss. I have not addressed that with our own congregation.
Okay.
I do know that a lot of people are enjoying worshiping at home in their pajamas. I mean, they're enjoying that. Got a few people who said they enjoy their Bloody Mary, while they're worshiping, which we don't have at church. But it's the great news is that the God we worship is not confined to a sanctuary, not confined to a building.
Okay.
God is everywhere, shows up everywhere. That was one of the impetuses of the book. seeing God at work every day. God is out there every day at work in amazing ways. You just put on the antennas, look around, and pay attention, and you just see amazing things. So, yes, we come together collectively as a body to worship. But the good news is that you don't have to go there to find God. I mean, God exists everywhere.
Right.
But I think that's a really smart idea, or a smart thing that you just mentioned there. Is there a way that we can create space at home that is kind of reverent? This is my space, my worship space, my quiet time, whatever it may be.
Yeah, maybe it's a place of meditation. I think some people look at maybe a meditation room or.
Absolutely. I know a lot of us are turning our homes into our home offices, and I've taken over the dining room table,
right,
and the other table, breakfast table. I mean, it's crazy. You got everything everywhere. And I know some people are working out of their closets. I mean, it's been crazy. But we've been creative in creating that space so we can do what we need to do.
Well, exactly. So it is interesting, and love your point. That God is not just in a house of worship. I mean, there's beyond that. But if we look at, for me, the ultimate real estate example was Catherine the Great's palace in St. Petersburg. It's this. You wonder why there was a Russian Revolution. Well, just look at one of these things. There's the church over here. You just bolted onto it. So she had a very large house of worship next door.
Yes, she did.
So, well, one other question I had for you, David. What is there a common message in light of these interesting times, the times that we are kind of navigating through a storm? A lot of us have different boats. Is there a message or is a common thread that would be helpful for somebody out there right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think, one thing I've seen is even though we've been forced apart, I think we see people coming together in remarkable ways. I mean, just look at our frontliners, our nurses, our doctors, our EMTs, our police, our fire, first responders, all that. I mean, it just shows the power of holding on to the vow that, by God, we're here for the community. We're not leaving. We're not abandoning our post. We're sticking to it. We're staying here. And I think that inspires other people. I mean, you think about just look around all the things that have arisen during this time that never would have arisen during this time. Mm-hmm. Had things been just kind of normal.
Right.
This is where the creative juices, the entrepreneurship starts coming out in people that, hey, how can I serve people here? How can I reach out and meet a need over there? I mean, I think it's just been remarkable. I think restaurants have done a phenomenal job of delivery, takeout, setting up, booths to drive up, give your name. But I mean, it's going to be fascinating how we come out of this and how people are going to respond. But I think the message is one of hope that, hey, we're going to get through this.
Yes.
We're a resilient group of people. We're resilient people to begin with. I mean, you look back in history, there's been a whole lot worse things that we've had to endure that we have come through, and we end up better on the other side. My hope is that we'll get back at it sooner rather than later, obviously safely, but at the same time, I think people need to work. It's interesting, in the Garden of Eden, which was perfect, Adam and Eve hanging out there, it's perfect. And even then, Adam worked. He had to work the garden. So work is good for us. It gives us purpose. It gives us identity. It gives us meaning and value. And so the fact that a lot of people out of work right now, boy, this is I think a dangerous time. And yet at the same time, an opportunity to invigorate people, to move forward. Let's get back out there, start working again very soon, because our lives and our society depend on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, work is a purpose. It's a rallying cry. It's the results are strewn throughout history.
Yeah.
And so no, it's interesting to your point that getting to work, and I think you probably there's work in the traditional employment and toil of your job, but there's probably work to be done too on each individual. I mean, I know one thing I've done is I've invested in working physically, just some exercise every now and again, more so than I did even prior to COVID-19 to keep mind and spirit in place.
And I think this has been a great impetus for people to reach out to one another. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? You doing okay? I mean, I think it's
that's work unto itself.
I know with the advent of Skype and Zoom,
yep.
People are connecting, seeing each other face to face, and it's virtual. I mean, it's not within 2 or 3 feet of each other, but it's still meeting the need of a chance to connect and to live in community. We are a gathering people.
Yep.
And we gather together at work. You gather together at school. You gather together at church. You gather together out on the sports field, in a sports stadium, down at T-Mobile, cheering on the Knights. I mean, whatever. We're a gathering group of people. And now that we've been sidelined, hope is that we come out of this stronger and more appreciative of the ability, the free ability to come and gather together with one another.
Yep, absolutely. Well put. So speaking of gathering, we touched a little bit on this, but you had the opportunity, which not many people have, and I'll tell you what, I don't know if it's guts, it's fortitude, the courage to perform live at Caroline's Comedy Club in Times Square in New York City. So let's kind of, as a pastor, you're speaking a lot. You're talking to a large gathering of people. You also mentioned you're a speaker as well. So the comedy route, how is that?
I speak every week in front of a large group of people.
Yep.
And I've been doing it for 31 years, and the few years I've taken off to do consulting work, I mean, I'm in front of groups of people all day long, and I have never been so nervous in my life as getting ready to step up on that stage at Caroline's Comedy Club. I mean, my hands were just shaking, and I thought to myself, how am I going to hold the microphone without, shaking like a leaf? Oh my goodness, I've never been so terrified before going up on a stage before. It was just crazy. But once you got up there, it's amazing. And I think the thing that I got to observe, because I was the third person up on stage that night, third or fourth. What I got to observe is that the crowd is rooting for you. They're at a comedy club. They want to laugh. They're moving forward. They're not. You kind of get the idea. They're not sitting there with arms folded saying, "Make me laugh." I mean, they are there to laugh, and they're pulling for you because they want to laugh with you. I mean, absolutely. And right from the get-go, of course, I introduced myself. I'm David Dendy. I'm from Las Vegas. Woo! And everyone clapped. And then I said, hey, and I'm also a pastor. And the room just got deadly quiet, which I figured it would. And I said, now, hold your applause now, because no one claps when you say you're a pastor. And no one does. I mean, you might even look at your own drop rate on this show. As soon as you mentioned I was a pastor, you might have dropped off by 50%. I don't know. But he just went on talking about what it's like to be a pastor in Sin City. I mean, it was great. We got slot machines in the fellowship hall. We got all kinds of stuff. We get comps in the offering plate, free breakfast every weekend. I mean, all those kind of good things.
That's correct. So just being here and being in your profession, you have material, and there's people that can relate.
Yes, we do. And, I love to laugh. Who doesn't love to laugh?
Yep.
And so we laugh a lot at church. Like I said, our theme is laugh often and fear not. And we have, one thing I've noticed over time in life is, fear is something that grips us, it shackles us, it holds us back from moving forward, thinking clearly. And all the research I've done, and I've spoken a little bit about this as well, the brain, when we laugh, opens up. I mean, endorphins, dopamine, the hormones coming to make us feel good, make us think better.
Right.
There's great research out there that shows that if you're getting ready to make a really serious decision, you better be doing a lot of laughing before you make that decision, because you'll make a better decision. You're able to see more clearly, think kind of outside the box, so that you can really make the best decision. And I think that's where in our workplace, places wherever we're working, we can really learn from that. And we make decisions every day, which affect the future of the company, the future of the employees,
Yep.
and everything. And so, if laughter is not a part of your work culture, then I would encourage you to let me come and visit you at your workplace and share with you what about, how can we bring laughter, levity, and humor into the workplace so that we can have better relationships, interpersonal relationships. How can we, laughter allows us to be more motivated. It allows us to be more focused. Our learning, we can remember more. It builds our immune system. We take less sick days. I mean, you've got to have, if you're not laughing at work, well, you're in trouble. I'll just say it like that.
Well, and you touched on this, fear. Before COVID-19, there's a lot of stimuli coming at people, via the internet, via television, via print, about fear. And, we deal with fear a lot in our industry. I'm sure, you and your deal with fear. And, when COVID-19 hit, it was here comes the fear ton of bricks on people.
Right.
And how are, even today, I'm sure there's people that are just, because there's, we're still being, for better or worse, being bombarded by fear. Job loss numbers, forbearance, you name it. There's,
right.
There's fear that this bamboo might kill me. How you talk about laughing. What could you say to somebody right now that's maybe tuning in and says, okay, I've got some fears, I've got some concerns?
Well, absolutely. And so I think the question is, it's not so much as are you afraid or not? I mean, being afraid, being fearful,
yep.
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. The question is, what is the fear doing to you?
Right.
The question is, how do we get through the fear, push past it, get over it, under it, around it, whatever, direct, So what is it? Can I define it?
Yes.
And sometimes when we can define it, it becomes a little more manageable. That, okay, this is what it is. I mean, we're afraid of failure. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of loss. We're afraid of change. All these type of things. I know for me, I'm afraid of failure. Well, but let's define it a little bit more. What is it about failure that scares you? Well, to me, I equate failure with humiliation. And let's face it, no one likes to be humiliated.
Nope.
And so, but yet, I can't allow that fear. If I let that fear, grab a hold of me, then I never would have stepped up on that stage at Caroline's. Hey, I might be humiliated up there, but I got to give it a try. Got to give it a risk. Got to do it. And so, I would say to someone, if the fears are holding you back, well, let's figure out a way to push through them.
Right.
For us, for me in the Bible, God's word says God did not give us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and love and self-control. And so if the fear is here, well, God didn't put it there. Who did? Who did put that fear in me? And so let's define it. Let's step over it. Let's step through it. And the good news is that you can. You don't have to be defined or limited by your fears. I'd rather be defined by what I'm chasing after, what I'm doing, how I'm moving forward. So.
No, that's a great point, and I think, I look at fear a little different. I look at fear and say, okay, well, can I equate fear to, let's call it risk, and if I equate back to sports, if I'm playing a tough golf hole, I know this sounds kind of a corny situation, with water on one side and pins tucked, going, well, okay, the good news is if I screw up, I don't die. So it's not like a gladiator movie. So I've kind of removed that, but I said, okay, well, what's the risk? I said, well, there's a lot of risk over here that could, impact your score, things like that. So, okay, great. How do we play towards we've measured that. Can we play towards a more risk adverse side? And I equate that to business and say, okay, well, we know that there are risks. There's a risk to everything. There's risk to going out. Back into the caveman days, if you went outside, you could get eaten by an elephant or by a lion. Well, okay, that's risk. Okay, well, if there's no lions around, well, that risk is probably pretty low.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, it's just, I want to live a life with very few regrets.
Yes.
And people on their deathbed, the common theme is people on their deathbeds regret not what they did, but what they did not do.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so I don't want that for my life. I want to, hey, I tried it. And I've always been fascinated by comedy and laughter. I love to laugh. I've always thought, what would it be like to be stand-up comedian and just get up there and your job is to make people laugh for 15 minutes. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And so I'd rather say, I went and I did it versus, I'm age 90 going, I never did pursue that. I wish I had done that, blah, blah. I don't want that. I don't think you do either. I don't think anybody wants that.
No, and we do hear about people that they have regrets, but as Frank Sinatra says, I've had a few, but too few to mention. And that's one of the things I enjoy about our conversations is you look at your events of life, and that like I said, we've got some width and some depth to it. So if that's the case, David, what's next on the plate?
What's next on the plate? Well, I just put together an online course called "Come to the Table."
Okay.
How a 4-course meal and how to laugh often and fear not. That'll be available this Friday. You can find it at daviddendy.com.
Okay.
And so I'm excited about that, and we'll see how that goes. And then down the road, once people can get together, I'd like to take a little bit of not the show on the road, but go out to visit churches and houses of worship to offer comedy, laughter, and as well as a serious message. I'd love to continue working with people. How do we bring a culture of humor, levity, and laughter in the workplace where people can really enjoy their time together, enjoy the work that they do, and enjoy the people around them.
I think that's a great way to, as the state, the nation goes back to work, a great kickoff, because with the storm, we're sort of, hopefully we're on the tail end of this storm, and to get everyone excited, to look forward. We were moving ahead pretty strongly. It's not to say that there's not going to be more storms in the future. They may be of varying degrees, but right. To sort of let's look at bringing Dave in to speak to the group to provide some levity, some humor, some guidance, to sort of build up that mental immune system.
Right.
So, David, how do people reach you? Is it just through daviddendy.com?
DavidDendy.com. That'd be perfect. Yeah, that's a great way. Yeah, absolutely.
And
I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of good stuff too. So
fantastic. And also too, do a little YouTube search on David Dendy, especially David Dendy Carolines. There's some great little comedy spots. I remember seeing it. I had a great laugh because I was curious to see how this man of faith is going to get some people in Times Square to put a laugh. And it wasn't about humiliation. There was no fear of that. I would just say, I want to see how he pulls this off. It's almost, I wouldn't say it's like a magic act, but it was a play, and he practiced it.
It was one of the greatest nights of my life. Yeah. So a lot of fun.
Well, David, and one last item too. Where are houses of worship in regards to the reopening phases, so people can maybe have an understanding of that?
That's a great question. I think we're still not allowed to come together and worship, as obviously as a large group. But we've had some drive-through services, and we do our online, and then people drive through the parking lot, we wave to them and everything like that. But it's interesting. Other states are opening up. I got a good friend in Virginia. They had about 100 people in worship on Sunday. Chairs spread out, kind of social distance or physical distance.
Yep.
One another. And so my hope is that, in the next month or two, we're able to come back together on a limited basis. We'll kind of see how that looks. But we want to be safe. We have a large number of elderly folk in our church, and so we definitely, they seem to be, throughout this COVID-19, to be the most vulnerable. And so out of great love and care for them, we want to make sure when we do come back, we're really got everything in line and spot on to make sure they're safe as well.
Absolutely fantastic. And Mountain View, if I understand correct, that's up there off of Del Webb by Rampart, isn't it?
It is. Rampart and Del Webb up here in Summerlin, and it's out here on the west side of town. And so love to have you come visit personally, when the time comes. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely.
And just to let you know, Don, this is the last time anybody will see me with this much hair.
Okay.
Because today, finally, I get it cut.
Good for you. Although I will be honest, unlike myself, which my hairdo at one point in time going into last week looked like the rough at a U.S. Open. You've done a good job grooming. Now, I think you still kind of have the tennis pro look of sort of that the early mid-90s. Kind of that nice coiffed.
Yeah. It's amazing what gel can do for you. Just
fantastic.
There you go.
David, thank you for being a part of today's episode. Greatly appreciate you coming on today. And if anyone has any comments for Dave, do me a favor, put them in the comments below. We'll get them over to David and get a response back to you if you have any questions about speaking at your group or business. Again, to Mountain View Presbyterian over in it's off of Del Webb in Sun City in Summerlin. And then if you more information, visit daviddendy.com to learn more about David and also to his books, and plus his upcoming piece coming out this week.
All right, Don, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the time together. Coffee with Cramer.
Yeah.
Even though mine was H2O.
Yours coffee, yeah. Your little H2O there, but no.
You know what?
Cup 2.
You know what, Don? I've never, ever had a cup of coffee my whole entire life.
You've never had a cup of coffee?
Never had a cup of coffee. So, but thanks for having me on the show anyway.
Absolutely. Well, that's okay. We encourage anyone, whether they're a coffee lover or not, to just kind of bring their beverage of choice, and we appreciate you bringing on a little water, but a cool little mug there. I'm glad, you have your one raving fan. That's one, one more than a lot of others. So let's get to number 2. But then anyway, David, thanks for being on again. Cheers to you. And on behalf of my partner, Colleen Schaefer, I'm Don Cramer. We appreciate you tuning in to Coffee with Cramer and Colleen, where we're chatting about real estate, we're chatting about community, and we're chatting about lifestyle. And we've got a couple other episodes this week. Tomorrow we do our weekly update on Wednesdays as always. Thursday we're excited. We've got Frank Shaw with 3 Dog Bakery, a Summerlin-based dog bakery and food services place for the little pups. He's going to be on Thursday. And then Friday we have Success Consultant, and we're going to dive into that some more on Friday, Missy Day. So again, we appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, comment below if you have any questions for David, or reach out to us. And again, on behalf of Colleen, who sends her best today, more now than ever, your real estate experience matters. So give us a call if we can help you with buying, selling, or investing in Las Vegas real estate. Till next time, have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.